Real estate is a man's business, Amanda, my brother James said, leaning back in our father's leather chair. His feet were propped on the mahogany desk where Dad had taught us both about property values and market trends. The clients won't take you seriously. The developers won't respect you. You'll embarrass the family name. I stood there in my carefully chosen suit, my real estate license and MBA diploma clutched in my hands like shields. At 28, I'd spent years preparing to join Callahan Properties, our family's century-old real estate empire. Now my older brother, interim CEO since Dad's heart attack, was dismissing me like I was a child asking for candy. Dad promised, I started. Dad's not here, James cut me off. He's recovering and I'm in charge. The board agrees with me. This isn't some cute boutique agency selling suburban homes to soccer moms. We handle major commercial properties, skyscrapers, office complexes. It's not suitable for someone like you. Someone like you. The words burned. I graduated top of my class, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I've already closed 3 major deals independently. Using Dad's connections, he scoffed. Listen, stick to residential. Maybe open a small agency focusing on homes. Leave the real business to those who can handle it. Behind him, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see downtown Chicago's skyline. Buildings our grandfather had helped develop, properties our father had acquired. The empire I'd dreamed of helping expand since I was old enough to understand what our family did. James, I tried one last time. We both know Dad wanted us to run this together. He stood up, straightening his custom suit. Dad's old-fashioned ideas about equality don't work in today's market. The board needs strong, decisive leadership, not diversity hires. The diploma crumpled in my clenched fist. Is that what I am? A diversity hire? You're my sister and I love you, he said with the condescending smile I'd grown to hate. But this is business. Go find something more appropriate for your talents. I turned to leave, then stopped. You know what Dad always said about pride before the fall? Are you threatening me? He laughed. With what? Your vast experience? Your deep industry connections? Face it, Amanda. Without the Callahan name, you're nothing in this business. I walked out of that office with my head high, past the family photos lining the halls, past the plaque commemorating our grandfather's founding of the company in 1923, past the surprised look of our longtime receptionist who'd known me since I was in pigtails. In the elevator, I finally let the tears fall. But they weren't tears of defeat. They were tears of rage, of determination, of absolute clarity about what I needed to do. My phone buzzed, Dad's physical therapist, updating me on his progress. He was recovering slowly, but doctors said it would be months before he could return to work. Months during which James would continue consolidating his power, pushing through his vision of an all-male leadership team. Outside, Chicago's spring wind whipped at my hair as I walked to my car. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Michael Chin, one of the independent developers I'd worked with on my previous deals. Heard what happened? Their loss. Let's talk. Lunch tomorrow. I smiled, wiping away the last tears. Michael was known for backing underdogs, for seeing potential others missed. And he had no love for the old boys club that dominated Chicago real estate. That night, in my apartment, I spread out everything I'd collected over the years: market analyses, property reports, demographic studies, development trends. Knowledge James thought I couldn't possibly understand because I was just a girl. My laptop pinged with an email from Sarah Martinez, my former roommate now working at an investment bank. Ready to discuss that business plan whenever you are. Another ping, Peter Goldman, a mentor from my MBA program. Heard about Callahan Properties' latest mistake. Want to explore other opportunities. James thought I had no connections. He was about to learn how wrong he was. I opened a new document and typed, strategic plan, breaking the glass ceiling one property at a time. By midnight, I had the outline of a plan. By dawn, I had the beginnings of a revolution. Dad had always said real estate wasn't just about properties. It was about seeing potential others missed. About being patient, strategic, willing to play the long game. Well, brother dear, I thought as I watched the sun rise over the city skyline, let's play. I had 5 years of trust fund money saved up, funds James probably assumed I spent on shoes and handbags. I had a network of industry contacts I'd built quietly while he was busy playing golf with board members. And most importantly, I had something he'd never understand: the motivation of someone who'd been underestimated their entire life. My phone buzzed one more time, a message from Dad. "Don't let them stop you, princess. Show them what Callahan women are made of." I texted back a heart emoji, then got to work. James wanted a man's business? Fine. I'd give him something better: a woman's revenge. The next morning, I met Michael Chin at a small cafe far from the business district where Callahan Properties loomed. No need to alert James to my moves just yet. "So," Michael said, sliding a thick folder across the table. "Ready to make your brother eat his words?" I opened the folder and smiled. Inside were details of 3 struggling properties in up-and-coming areas, properties Callahan Properties had dismissed as not worth the effort. The previous owners over-leveraged during the last boom, Michael explained. Banks are quietly looking to offload them. With the right vision and the right partners, I added, studying the numbers. "I've got 4 other investors interested," he continued. All of them, coincidentally, quite tired of the old boys network running the city's real estate. 2 were women who'd faced similar discrimination. 1 was a minority developer who'd been shut out of major deals. The 4th was a young tech millionaire looking to diversify his portfolio. "We call ourselves the Outsiders Club," Michael grinned. "Want to join?" By the end of lunch, I had my first partnership agreement. By the end of the week, I had my first property, a rundown warehouse in an area the city had tagged for tech development. James, predictably, couldn't resist commenting when he heard. "A warehouse?" He laughed during a family dinner. "How cute. Planning to store all the houses you'll be selling?" Mom looked uncomfortable. Dad, still recovering but sharp as ever, watched silently. "Something like that," I smiled, cutting my steak with precise movements. 3 months later, when Google announced they were looking for satellite office space in exactly that area, James' laughter stopped. The warehouse, with its high ceilings and industrial charm, was exactly what tech companies wanted. I didn't sell, though. Instead, I leveraged that property to acquire 2 more in the same area. James might control the family company, but he'd forgotten one crucial lesson Dad taught us. Real estate was about anticipating trends, not following them. My phone buzzed constantly now: developers, investors, tech companies, all wanting in on what we were building. The Outsiders Club grew, quietly acquiring overlooked properties across the city. "You need to be careful," Dad warned during one of our private lunches. "James is starting to notice." "Good," I replied, showing him our latest acquisition, a string of supposedly worthless properties along the proposed new transit line. Properties Callahan Properties had publicly dismissed as high risk. Dad smiled, the same smile he'd worn when I'd sold my first property at 19. "You always did see things differently." I had a good teacher. The next 2 years passed in a blur of deals, renovations, and strategic planning. While James focused on flashy downtown properties, my network focused on the edges, the emerging neighborhoods, the transitional zones, the places where real money was made if you were patient enough. Then came the tech boom. Suddenly, every major company wanted Chicago offices away from the traditional business district. They wanted character, authenticity, connection to up-and-coming neighborhoods. They wanted exactly what we had. "Did you see the latest market report?" Sarah asked during our weekly strategy meeting. "Your brother's company just posted their first quarterly loss in 15 years. I had seen it. I'd also seen the panicked board meetings through the glass windows of their downtown office. James had bet big on traditional commercial properties, just as the market was shifting toward exactly the kind of spaces we'd been quietly accumulating. "Time for phase 2? Michael asked. I nodded. We'd spent 3 years building our portfolio, forming partnerships, establishing ourselves as the go-to developers for the new economy. Now it was time to make James understand exactly what he'd dismissed. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Callahan Properties had leveraged several of their prime downtown properties to fund new acquisitions. When those acquisitions underperformed, they needed cash fast. "They're selling the Madison Street properties," Peter reported. "All 6 buildings. Quietly, through a proxy to avoid market panic. The Madison Street properties. Our family's first major commercial success. The buildings our grandfather had started with, that our father had expanded." "How much?" I asked. "More than we have liquid," Sarah admitted. But But if we leverage everything we've built, if we bring in our entire network. Michael pulled out his calculator. We could do it. I looked around the room at my team, my real family. The people who'd believed in me when my own brother wouldn't. Make the calls, I said. All of them. The next month was intense. Secret meetings, complex financial arrangements, carefully structured deals. Our entire network mobilized, pulling together resources, calling in favors. The day we closed the deal, I sat in my office looking at the signed papers. Through some delicious twist of fate, James would have to be the one to sign over the properties. The final humiliation. He arrived at the lawyer's office looking confident, probably assuming some big corporation was the buyer. Then he saw me. What is this? He demanded. This, I smiled, is business. Man's business, I believe you called it. His face went through a fascinating series of expressions as our lawyer explained the details. His signature when it finally came was shaky. The rent notices go out next week, I told him as he stood to leave. I think you'll find the new rates more competitive. He turned back, face red. You can't. Can't what? Run a major commercial real estate portfolio? Make strategic acquisitions? Build a network of investors? Funny, that's exactly what you said 5 years ago. How did that work out for you? The door closed behind him with a satisfying click. I sat there alone for a moment, running my fingers over the property deeds. Then I took out my phone and dialed. Dad? Remember what you used to say about karma in real estate? His laugh was worth everything. Should I save you a seat at the next board meeting? No need, I smiled. I've got my own empire to run. 3 months after acquiring the Madison Street properties, I sat in my new office, coincidentally located in one of the buildings I now owned, directly across from Callahan Properties headquarters. Through my window I could see James pacing in his office, probably staring at the latest market reports. They weren't good. For him anyway. Your brother's here, my assistant announced through the intercom. Says it's urgent. I smiled, straightening the family photo on my desk. The last one taken before Dad's heart attack, before James showed his true colors. Send him in. James burst through the door, clutching a stack of papers. Gone was the perfectly pressed suit and carefully maintained appearance. He looked desperate. You have to stop this, he demanded, throwing the papers on my desk. They were our new lease agreements for all Callahan Properties satellite offices, the ones they'd been forced to move to after selling their prime locations. Stop what? I asked innocently. Charging market rates? Isn't that what you taught me about real business? These rates are impossible. You're trying to bankrupt us. No, James. I'm doing business. Just business. Isn't that what you said? No room for family sentiment in real estate. He collapsed into a chair, his arrogance finally cracking. What do you want? Want? I stood, walking to my wall of achievements, deals closed, properties acquired, awards won. All under my own name, not the Callahan banner. I already have what I want. A successful company. A respected position in the industry. Everything you said I couldn't have because I was just a girl. The board is meeting next week, he said quietly. They're considering changes. Of course they were. Callahan Properties stock had dropped 30% since my takeover of the Madison Street properties. Their major tenants were fleeing to our newer, better located buildings. Their development pipeline had dried up because they'd missed the market shift we'd anticipated. Changes like what? I asked, though I already knew. They want to merge, he admitted. With your company. I sat back down, savoring the moment. Interesting. And who suggested this idea? Dad. Now that was surprising. Dad had stayed carefully neutral during my rise, offering advice but never directly interfering. He says it's time to reunite the family legacy, James continued. Under new leadership. New leadership? He swallowed hard. Yours. The silence that followed was heavy with 5 years of history, his dismissal, my exile, the sweet revenge of success. Let me get this straight, I said finally. You want me to save the company you said I wasn't qualified to work for? To take over the position you said a woman couldn't handle? I was wrong, he whispered, and I could see how much those words cost him. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. Time to heal the family, princess. On your terms. I looked at James, really looked at him. Behind the desperation I saw something new: respect. Maybe even understanding. The merger will happen, I said firmly. But with conditions. He straightened. Name them. First, the board gets restructured. Equal gender representation. No more old boys club. He nodded. Second, we implement a mentorship program for women and minorities in real estate. Full funding, real opportunities. Another nod. Third. I paused, picking up the family photo. You apologize. Not just to me. To every woman in the company you've overlooked or underestimated. Publicly. Is that all? He asked, a hint of his old sarcasm returning. No. I smiled. You're going to work for me. Really work. Starting from project management, learning the new market realities. Proving your value just like I had to. His face reddened, but he didn't argue. Welcome to the new Callahan Properties, brother dear. Hope you're ready to learn how a woman does business. The merger announcement made headlines. Female developer takes over century-old family firm. The photo they used showed me standing with our leadership team, diverse, talented, united. James did apologize publicly and sincerely. Then he started his new role, learning from the ground up how the industry had changed. Surprisingly, he was good at it when he stopped underestimating people based on gender. Dad cried at the first board meeting of the merged company. Your grandfather, he said, hugging me, would be so proud. Not because you proved them wrong, but because you did it your way. A year later, I stood at the podium during the Real Estate Development Association's annual conference, accepting the Developer of the Year award. My speech was simple. 5 years ago, I was told real estate was a man's business. Today, I own the companies of the men who told me that. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about change. About seeing potential where others see limitations. About building not just properties but opportunities. In the audience, James applauded with the rest. He was learning, growing, becoming the brother I'd always hoped he'd be. My phone buzzed, another major acquisition opportunity. Below it, a message from Dad. Ready to show them what Callahan women can really do? I smiled, looking out at the city skyline, our skyline. Real estate is everyone's business, I concluded my speech. And the future belongs to those brave enough to break through glass ceilings, one building at a time. The standing ovation wasn't just for me. It was for every woman who'd ever been told she couldn't. Every person who'd been dismissed, underestimated, pushed aside. James met me at the exit. Next project meeting's in 10 minutes, he said, handing me a coffee. Try not to be too hard on your little brother? I laughed, linking my arm through his. Now where would the fun be in that? Together we walked toward the future. Not as brother and sister, not as man and woman, but as equals in the business we both loved. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in teaching them a better way to be.